Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Proceed with Passion Q&A Live. I am your host, Terry Schilling, and on Proceed with Passion, what I like to do is bring on fellow creative human beings to share their journey. What are the lessons learned along their stops on all these different career stops, and ultimately what led them to do work that they're passionate about. And today, I have the privilege of talking to a good friend of mine who I can now say is a good friend of mine. Met him online, probably a little bit over a year ago, but we've connected, worked on some projects together, been on his podcast before. He's in California. He is the CEO and founder of Blue Light Media Agency. Mikhail Alfon, what's good, bro? How you doing, man?
What is up, man? Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to do this. I'm jealous of your hair. It's always looking like so good.
Dude, thank you.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Thank you for having me here.
Dude, I appreciate it. Yeah, man, I updated the logo here as people could see in the right to kind of spruce up the volume a little bit there. But yeah, man, you got some nice flow though all the time too, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But yeah, man, I'm really excited to have you on here because I wanted to talk to you because I haven't really had anybody who's really been the founder of an agency and really built this thing up, from the ground up for yourself, working with a variety of different clients. And, I have a lot of people in my Facebook Copy Co-op group where we're doing this live now and also on my YouTube channel who either are working full-time as an agency and doing some freelance stuff part-time, but also their own business owners. So I think they can get a lot of insight, of kind of how you manage the different client relationships and how you've been able to build an agency. So, we'll really get into that today.
Cool. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man. So I want to know though, let's just start present time, Mikhail. So how has it been during this pandemic of handling, just employees, of navigating that, dynamic of in the office, working at home, and then, some of the relationships and projects that you've had, maybe some won, some lost too.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I guess it was like beginning of March, and then actually beginning of March or like going into March, something like that. But we kind of felt something was going to happen here in California. I think one of the first things to go down was the boutique fitness gyms, and those are some businesses that we lost, or some business that we lost, which was a pretty decent chunk of it. And then within about, I would say, a week, we lost a third of our business, and that was definitely a little disheartening, a little gut wrenching. But luckily, we didn't have to. We didn't have to let go of any of the employees or put anybody on furlough. My business partner, Nelson, and I, we took a little bit of a pay cut just to make sure that we had a little extra cushion for our employees. But as far as managing the clients were concerned, I mean, we had one-on-one calls with every single one, or, I had one-on-one calls with every single one, just letting them know like where we can help them out if they needed additional support or anything like that. And then we also negotiated some terms with them as well too, to like maybe reduce some of the fees and then defer them a little bit. So we did that with a couple of our partners, and we offered that up to help them out. And I think that was the biggest thing, is just letting them know like, hey, like I'd rather take a little bit of a cut now.
Yeah.
We'll get payment in a year than like lose the entire business. You know what I mean? And they were down with that because luckily we work with a lot of e-commerce brands in beauty and natural products.
Yeah.
And, they needed the internet, but it was still just terrifying for everybody. Right. So we built a lot of great camaraderie with those partners. And I think, that was the moment on both ends where it's like, yo, you were here for us because you stayed with us, and we were there for them because we were like flexible in our fees and did extra work for less money because we knew that they needed it, So managing the client relationship there was just like, honestly, just being like super open about where we were both at. I let them know that I was worried too, and that, because, we didn't know what was going on. So yeah, I think we got pretty lucky there. And then within within like 3 or 4 weeks from that, I started getting like super, went back to like the roots of like the virtual knocking on doors, went on like bark.com, like all of these like small sites that I haven't been on in forever, and just started like scraping for business and found some there, asked the client for a referral, and she shouted us out on all of social, and that like brought in a lot of business too, which is something that I hate doing, to be honest. But yeah, so
Okay.
That's how we dealt with it.
Yeah, man, there's so many different things to kind of navigate around. And yeah, it's been tough. And I like how you kind of bring that such empathetic approach to talking. It's like, hey, look, we're kind of it sounds cliche, like we're in this together, but you kind of just relate with them and be like, you were here for us. What can we do for you? I think sometimes people, especially during this, we're just like pushing, like, I'm available for work. What can I help you with? What can I help you with? But just almost coming off too pushy, which I think is something that you want to avoid for sure.
Yeah, I think that going into those things, it's different as a I would say that it's a little different as a freelancer.
Yeah.
Because you'd probably be the first one to be cut if you're just working on one thing. Like, let's take copy or just photography. It's like, it's really easy to cut one service out.
Yeah.
But with us, like, we manage multiple services, so it's hard to cut us out, I guess you could say. But
Yeah.
man, when I was pitching those new deals, we were at a pretty big deficit. Like, we had probably, if it kept going the way that it was going to go, we had 4 months. You know what I mean? Before, like, it just didn't make sense anymore. And what was I going to say? I remember being on some calls and just feeling like, I'll be very honest with you, prospect, like, we need the business. So let me know what we need to do. So it's crazy.
Try to be flexible. Yeah, man, it's been tough for everybody. Real quick, some positive stuff here, Mikhail. Check this out. We got Brittany Crossan, our good friend.
What is that?
What's going on, Brittany? Always good to see her. She's like one of the most energetic. Dude, she's like all over the internet with her videos and stuff. She's fantastic. So
man,
Brittany,
I love it so much. She motivates me to work out, like, straight up.
yeah, dude. Like, I just want, like, she just needs to do like behind the scenes, like first takes of her doing her like dancing on the treadmill videos, like because it's just it seems flawless the way she does it. But yeah, but Mikhail, let's go back then. When you were graduating college and going into the workforce as an adult, in the marketing world, what were you striving to do? Like, what did you think you were going to end up doing once you entered that?
So I actually went to a trade school to be a nurse.
Okay.
And I graduated when I was like 19. I was a nurse by the time I was 20. And for 2 years I worked as a nurse. I didn't realize that my dad actually was using my identity to embezzle a bunch of money.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I ended up losing my nursing license because of it. Got sued for like $500,000 before I could drink a beer, type of thing. And I actually ended up knocking on doors, cleaning carpets, cleaning toilets for a couple years not a couple years, for a couple months. Because this was right when the recession hit in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get a job at Burger King, dude. So I ended up playing poker professionally for 3 years. My poker coach at the time told me, like, he didn't like how I was living on, drinking in Vegas all the time, like obviously gambling, like these types of things, like outside of poker. And he's like, you can either go back to school or you can get a job. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to school. I didn't really like school in the first place. So I ended up getting a job as a telemarketer at a local SEO firm. And when I say local SEO firm, I don't mean proximity. I mean, press 1 to be on the first page of Google. So if there's any small business owners watching this and they got the call saying that, like, we'll get you on the first page of Google, I'm sorry, that was us. Or probably me. And but I realized that company wasn't fulfilling the work that they were selling on the phone. It was very much like the boiler room. I think they started off with good intentions, but it was very sales focused.
Okay.
So one day, when I realized that, I also decided, like, look, I think I need to start my own thing. And this was in like 2013 going into 2014. And I was thinking about social media marketing. It was getting a little bit more popular. It was probably a lot more popular than I thought it was at the time, because I wasn't really in the field yet. But I thought with social media, if I laid out in like my proposals and contracts, like, 5 posts a week, like 20 tweets, like whatever the case may be, at least I could, refer back to a bill of work, and then I would actually fulfill that bill of work. So that's when I started, kind of doing my own thing. I got fired from that job in November of 2014, and I was just left to do my thing. And I got, that company sued me for a conflict of interest. They ended up dropping it because it was a BS case in the first place.
Oh my
And
gosh, man.
yeah, man, my first 18 months
Roller
of,
coaster.
yeah, it was nuts, dude. My first 18 months of starting my business was literally working with mom and pop pizza shops and building a website and doing a photo shoot, 3 months of social media marketing and negotiating with Yelp for $600. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a grind for sure.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, man, I just had no idea like that. I mean, you kind of, I mean, I'm sure you've told this story a handful of times, but you kind of just like, yeah, so, professional poker player, my dad was, screwed me out of a ton of money, couldn't get my license. I mean, yeah, you probably couldn't get really any type of corporate job, even as like a beginner. You just said, I mean, you couldn't even get Burger King because they see that on your record. It's wild.
Yeah. I would venture to say that, like, I feel as if I'm a pretty smart dude, and maybe like the person
Yeah.
that was interviewing me was like, why are you even interviewing for this job? Not that people at that job aren't smart or anything, but I was also like 22, like like literally what was I doing? You know what I mean? So, and it was the recession. I don't know what went into that.
Yeah,
That
man.
probably
I
came off
graduated
really
around
bad.
the same time, dude. I couldn't find a job. Like I got like a couple offers from these small news stations because I was broadcast journalism, but it was just like such low pay. And then like I ended up just waiting tables and bartending. It's like the one thing that people could do during a recession or want to do is go out and like drink or go to the movies.
Yeah.
That's what's just so weird about the pandemic for those first couple months because nobody could do any of that stuff. There was no escape.
Right. There was definitely no escape. Luckily, I have like but my apartment building has a nice like rooftop parking structure, and nobody parks up there. So that's like where I got all my workouts in and like stuff like. But that was basically it. It was a small form of prison, I guess you could say.
Yeah, dude, crazy. Oh man,
But
and
like,
then, yeah, go ahead, continue your thought.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's kind of how the business started, and then I started to realize, like, hey, there's content that needs to be produced. There's content that needs to be produced, and I can't produce it all. So that's when we started hiring some contractors for like copywriting and basic social media management, like these types of things. And before I knew it, like I was having to build out an agency, and that wasn't like my plan.
Okay. Yeah.
But now. Yeah, and it wasn't until maybe I would say like halfway through 2016 did I realize like kind of the infrastructure of what an agency would be, and then kind of building it from there. So it's been kind of crazy, and obviously just been super blessed the last 3 years. I have the most amazing team in the world, and we've graduated from mom and pop pizza shops to nationally recognized brands, and a lot of startup brands too that are well funded that we get to work with. So it's been a ride for sure.
Dude, I love it. What's the 4K high definition memory that took your agency over that next step? So like that bigger client where you're just like, all right, don't F this up, guys. Like this is a big moment for us. Do you have like a client or project?
100%. It was NeoCell. And I knew that like I had the chops to like build up a brand, and not just me, obviously the team that I was working with, in terms of strategy, in terms of like content production. Like I just knew I could come through for this brand. And it was, you have to imagine, like I was still getting, the biggest deal we had at the time was like 800 or maybe $1,000 a month. But I was posting a lot of blogs to my personal Facebook, and a friend, her name's Shannon, shout to Shannon and Jessica for giving us a shot, that I hadn't seen her since high school. So at this point, it had been 10 or 11 years. I hadn't seen her since high school. She sees this blog, like the 10 ways to maximize your social media agency, whatever. And she hits me up. She's like, hey, do you do social media? And I was like, yeah. So we came in for a meeting, like we pitched our deal. And at this time, it was like the biggest deal for us. It was like at $4,000 a month. To do their full scope of like social media, like end-to-end stuff, which was really cool. And that was when that's when we really got to show everything that we could do. And we ended up helping bring that brand to acquisition, not once, but twice. They got acquired by Nutranex, which had a portfolio of natural products like Rainbow Light vitamins, Natural Vitality. Some of the people might have heard from this, and then also heard of these. And then when they got acquired by Clorox, like both times we thought we were going to lose our job. But we ended up working with the Clorox group for another year or so, and got to work with their portfolio of natural products brands. So that's that was like the moment. And I didn't realize that. I think actually I realized that was the moment when we got that contract, because it was like, this was our first like brand that was in stores. Before that, it was like small businesses, local businesses. So our first brand that was in stores, it was our first consumer packaged good. Like, we had felt like we made it, which was really cool. And so that was it, all from a blog post on my personal Facebook.
Dude, that's incredible. And you've been able to freaking ride that wave.
Yep.
Going into this. And like you said, working with a ton of bigger clients now, more products that are in stores, but obviously the e-commerce side of things, is huge for you. And it's just huge across, the past couple of years, just with all the different apps where people, can find you, like on Instagram, just like all these quick checkouts. And it's just so many different marketing channels, right, that you guys can take advantage of. And so everybody who's tuning in now live or watching the replay, I'm here with Mikhail Alfon, founder, CEO of Blue Light Media Agency. We shared a little bit of your origin story, man, which was pretty wild. A lot of, things to overcome. And you kind of it sounds like, dude, you just kind of said, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. Like, this is really one of the only options that I have now, if I want to make something for myself.
That was exactly what it was.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. I'm so blessed I got fired and sued, because I would have just half-assed the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was forced into a corner to come out. And so now when people are like, what's the secret? It's like, you have to like abandon all ships and just, like, if you consider like plan B, if you have a fallback plan, I think you're going to hedge a little bit. And I know that's very plastic, but like, you gotta give it 100%. And I was forced to do that. I don't know if I would have done that. I don't know if I would have jumped ship, to be honest. I was just forced to jump ship. So
yeah, and like, you're never 100% ready. And I feel like you honestly have to be like forced to figure it out. Like, a lot of people I've talked to on this have just kind of been like, I like went down this road and it was just kind of like, I need to figure this out now if I really want this to work. Because it's easy just to kind of like give up or, keep going backwards or stay complacent.
Yeah,
man,
for sure.
Awesome story. So I want to talk a little bit about how you pitch to these bigger clients. So now you've had this experience working with them. So tell me, how do you prepare for pitching to a new client?
Yeah, we definitely, first things first, like typically when we get like a lead in, we don't do a lot of cold prospecting. We have in the past, but it never really pans out.
Yeah.
But when we do get a lead in, whether it's through our website or through a referral, the first thing we do is a discovery call. And that discovery call is just like 15 to 20 minutes just to understand their goals, what they're already doing, where they plan on going and what their 6 month to 12 month plan is. Like that whole thing. Since we work with a lot of consumer packaged goods, we ask them like if their plan is to go into retail, how much of their focus is going to be on e-commerce, on their own properties, or on Amazon or third-party retailers, that type of thing, just so we can get a good view of like what our strategy should actually be. And then once we do that, we do as much research as we can on the upfront of the brand. If we'll try to get an audit in, like definitely for their paid media or their SEO or something like that. We'll try to get an audit in so we can give them actionable steps. But what we'll do is a quick competitive analysis, put that in our proposals, and a light overview of the strategy of what we're going to be actually executing for them. And that's really based off of, what they told us in that discovery call.
Yeah.
Our proposals are really kind of tailored around that. And then we kind of outline some budgets, not just what our management fees are, but also what we would want to spend in paid media, influencers, potential like additional production. Because one of the capabilities that we have, but don't like templatize, I guess you could say, is like video production. Because as you know, you can have like a 30-second video and it's like The Office, or you can have a 30-second video and it's like Star Wars Episode 9. And those are two very different productions. And so we'll outline their entire budget, present that to them, and then after that, it's just like, it's really just working with them and alleviating any concerns that they might have, and getting a lot more of getting some feedback. And then we have a pretty decent closing ratio, which is nice because the leads come in warm. And when I say warm, it's like it was typically a referral or they heard of us online or something like that. But, you know, I think the biggest thing is just being able to, being patient, because as you start like asking for these bigger retainers, like in the past, like if I'm asking for a $400 a month social media marketing, you know, or social media management thing like 6 years ago, like I would expect that to close in like 3 days. But then, you know, once you start asking for 5 to 10 grand, you know, you got to expect that it's going to take a couple more weeks depending on their spot. You know, we've obviously had ones that close faster. We've had ones that close like 6 months later, like for whatever reason. And it's just being really patient and like really coming from a place of service. You know, I think that's one of the ways that you can really have a better like closing ratio, and then also approach those things, approach those opportunities more patient or better, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good kind of segue into this next point and question I have for you is just any type of tips that you have for really communicating your value. So like getting them on the call is one thing, but I talk to a lot of people, you know, trying to grow their own business where it's just like, look, I know I'm good at what I do, but I think I just struggle with communicating my value where the client and the prospect can really see that. So what are some tips maybe that you have, whether you're on the discovery call or, you know, some things that other people can do to kind of help increase those closing rates?
Yeah, the number one thing I did to increase my closing rate was I never, ever send a proposal without going over it together on a video call. Yeah, that was the biggest one, because you imagine you send over a proposal, they have all these, depending on what yours look like, they have all these pictures and all these words that they don't understand, or not that they don't understand, but there's no context a lot of the time to what it is. And so scheduling a video call to go through it, and then tackling some of those objections on the upfront, and then also giving yourself an opportunity to revise it. Because let's say, you know, seldom are you going to be pitching the person that's making the final decision. Like it has to go to a team, or it might have to go to the CEO, whatever the case may be. If they just get this document, they're going to have questions, and then they're going to come up with answers on their own in their head. So doing it on a video call, you can really gauge a lot of those things. You can gauge the budget and adjust it so that it's more custom tailored to them. But number one, that is like the biggest thing that changed our closing ratio. I'll never do it if they don't want to get on a call and send the proposal, or and go on a video call. I don't send them the proposal because they're clearly not serious about it. Wow. Yeah, I've straight up just like not sent it.
Do you send it to them and then you get on the call, or do you just like, hey, let's get on a call and then check your email and then we'll go through this together? Or do you like share your screen?
I share my screen and then I send it after. Absolutely not. I think I've made the exception 1 or 2 times. And the first thing they do, they go all the way down to the bottom. They look at the price and like, nope. You know what I mean? So it's like, and you don't have a chance to build any value. So
I mean, dude, it honestly just taps into like a psychology thing where it's like they're more inclined to just say no right away if they're going to talk to you, because you're starting to build a rapport. It's kind of like if you walk by and you see the girl selling Girl Scout cookies, you're just like, well, I don't want to feel like a dick, and like not at least like, entertain the idea, you know, that type of thing. So I know that's probably not like your big tactic about it, but you know, you're right. You give so much more context where they can see the value as they're reading all this. That's interesting. I've never done that before. I do screen recordings if I send documents for like added context. I maybe was thinking about doing that with the proposal, but
I would challenge you for the next year to only do video calls and live reviews of the proposal, then send it when you're done so that you can make like edits based off of your call. I would challenge you for the next year to do that and see how much everything improves from there.
Yeah, no, that's a great advice. Brittany, still hanging with us. Love the video proposal thing. I've wanted to do that and haven't taken the leap. Love it. Hopefully that motivates you, Brittany. I think it motivated me as well to give that a try. It's a good strategy. Oh man. Now, Mikhail, I want to know too, what's your approach to handling a tough client? I'm sure maybe you've had these tough conversations even during this time, right? You know, and we're not naming names. I don't have logos that I'm going to pop up on the screen here, you know, but it's just in general, this is tough for a lot of people, whether you're a manager of an agency, whether you're a freelancer, you know, if they're, you know, asking for too much, you know, or if you're just struggling to communicate and like really deliver what they're looking for, how do you handle those conversations?
Yeah, so one of the things that I love about your content, Terry, is like on Twitter, I know that you mentioned a lot, like, there's no amount of money that's going to solve for a terrible client. Like, and that's the absolute truth. So for one, you have to separate yourself from the money. And I know that this sounds super like just kind of whatever out there, but like you have to have an abundance mindset. A lot of times the people who keep these bad clients are just scared that they're not going to get another client, but really, they're just holding themselves from a better situation. So if you can detach yourself a little bit from the outcome of that call and the chance that they might drop you or you might have to drop them, and go with a little bit of an indifference, you'll start communicating from the heart instead of hedging to keep the client in. But the first thing, and it's happened recently. It's like the first thing I'll do when I get on the call is I'll hit them up on an email and ask them and just like say, hey, I want to catch up with you, see how things are going. I have some concerns that I want to address. And honestly, like, I'll ask them first, like how they feel things are going, where they feel like we could potentially improve our workflow. And then also like, what they like about our workflow. And I'll take that from them and I'll definitely address those problems. But typically the tough client, if we have a tough client, the issue will come from like my team. And for me personally, the health of my team and their attitude toward a brand or whatever it is far more important than any retainer or any brand. So I'll always be on the defense for my team and let them know, like, like our process has worked in the past. Like we do want to remedy this situation, but like we can't. I'll just tell them straight, dude, I had this conversation yesterday. I told them straight up, like, if it continues to go the way that it's going, like, I don't want to keep you in a situation that's making you unhappy. And I'll tell that to the client. And then at that point, they're like, if you put it on them, it's like, not put it on them, like blaming them, but say like, I don't want to keep you in a situation where you're unhappy. Then their guard gets let down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then they're potentially a little bit more open to telling you what their actual concern is or things like this. If you say something along the lines of like, yeah, I don't do this many revisions, I don't do like blah, blah, blah. And you're hitting me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, then they're on the defense because it's like, you should be working for me. And I had kind of that mindset. But if you come from the place of and mean it, where it's like, where it's like, look, I just want to make sure that you have a partner that works for your workflow. And if I'm not that person, like that's okay, but I want to figure this out. So I don't know. I think it just comes with empathy. And that's a lot of the things too. Like it really depends. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of dragging on this, but it really depends. Yeah. I think it depends on the situation. Empathy is a big one. And I know that's really easy, but sometimes we'll be dealing with a brand because we deal with a lot of startups where it's like, this is the first time that they're working with an agency. Mm-hmm. Like we're talking with the founder, we're talking with the co-founder and understanding like they're like giving their baby to you like allowing you to take care of them and all of these things. Like no shit, they're gonna like chop up your copy and chop up the photos because they have this idea of perfection.
Dude, so I try to communicate. So invested in their product, it's tough to kind of have like these subjective viewpoints.
Yeah, 100%. And I tell the team all the time, like and I think that's probably the number 2 biggest way that I handle tough clients is I try to communicate with the team where that client is probably coming from. You know what I mean? And just trying to drive some empathy from the team there. Not that they don't have it already, but sometimes they don't realize this is the first time they're working with an agency. Sometimes they don't realize that that client, they have 4 kids, they're bootstrapping this whole thing. They're investing all of their money into us and all this stuff. So there is a little bit of panic maybe, so there's just all these different situations, but empathy is usually the biggest one. But number 1, always like protect yourself, protect your team if you have a team of people. Because like you say, Terry, like there's no retainer that's going to solve for a bad client. And some clients are just not good for you, and you have to be okay with letting those go.
Yeah. I think like you just have to not take it so personally. It's like sometimes like you said, like this could be their first time working with a contractor or agency. It's like, maybe it's them. It's like they learned a lesson now too, where maybe they just handle this internally for the moment and it's not your fault. Like you guys did what you do best. And, you know, you bring up how like empathy is kind of an easy one, and like it really is, but it's still so hard for people to grasp and use that. Like I know when I've done like projects kind of in my early days, if this client just kept asking for all these feedback or all these edits, I would just like give like pretty short responses via email because I was frustrated and be like, look, we need to look at the scope more because we agreed to one round of edits. And it's like, that would be the email, right? Like no empathy at all, not trying to understand where she's coming from. It's just like looking out for number one for me. Yeah. But it's like a big lesson learned, man, just to kind of reflect on that. Because my big thing is just like people come to work for me or come like back to work with me and like get referrals because I'm easy and enjoyable to work with. Like I believe that. Because there's copywriters better than me who come up with something better. like they could be more talented, have more skill set than me. But I just like to be easy and enjoyable to work with because I think that's just going to make people come back and like they're just going to trust me more.
I think you're easy. To the listener or the viewer, I've had the opportunity to work with you firsthand, and you're easy and enjoyable to work with. My team loves you. The copy like comes out great. Like everything's awesome. So no doubt about that. But to your point, like, you know, I think, and I'm sorry, this is maybe coming off as like shame on you for that. It's like I almost never say like this is out of scope. You know what I mean?
No, dude, but it's all good. It's like looking back, I'm like, it's like sometimes you just need to hear that.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I almost never say it's out of scope. Not that verbatim, but I will say like I will kind of refer to it, but I'll be like, you know, we have an agreement, like, you know, something a little bit softer, like, you know, we have an agreement of like one round of revisions. So we'll do the second one, but let's figure out a process so that we can get this done the first time. Because revisions are typically the biggest one. I straight up do not deal with any clients that are like rude to my team. I will fire them on the bat or on the whatever.
I got you.
But like, dude, there's no way like will I ever deal with a client being rude to my team. But like revisions and stuff, you can usually work around that.
Totally.
You know, and then a lot of times I have a little bit of flexibility here. A lot of times I will do the work on the upfront. So let's say they ask for an extra blog post or they ask for an extra shot of extra round of photos. We'll do it on the upfront because, you know, client relationships, and be like, hey, here's the extra 10 photos that you wanted. In the future, if you want additional photos, it's, you know, $2,000 for this amount of photos. So now it's like, hey, I hooked you up, but I'm also setting the boundary of like, you know, in the future, if you want this again, then you're going to have to compensate us for that. And I think that's fair.
Right. No, man, absolutely. No, man, it's, like I said, dude, I welcome that advice because it does just come off. And like, even like I knew it in the moment, like after I read it, I'm like, oh my God, I sound like a dick right now. Cause it's just like, it's been such like constant emails of like, hey Terry, can we adjust this? Can we do that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we've kind of talked about this, but it's helped me adjust things in my proposals and how I, you know, start the project. But yeah, I mean, if you can look back and be like, this is a good lesson learned, you know, and not just be like, just screw it and not take anything away from it, then you know, you kind of failing yourself for sure.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I love about my team is every time they run into a challenge, they're pretty quick to put together like a plan of like, how can we avoid this on the upfront in the future? Like every time it's honestly amazing.
Yeah. No, man, that's awesome. Now, Mikhail, I want to switch gears a little bit because you are really active on social media and especially on Instagram. You spread a lot of positivity. You kind of have your own movement and hashtag now of Earn Your Sunrise, which has been really fun to see. But like, what are your quick tips for building, you know, a personal brand on social media? Because I think you've done a really good job, and some people think that it could be really cheesy of all these motivational quotes, but you've come at it of a very genuine approach and people really relate to it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I would say like, don't be so quick to put yourself in a box because we're humans. And I know that's kind of maybe counterintuitive to a lot of the advice that you might get from other people, where it's like, find your niche, talk about that. And yeah, you should have that. I mean, the only 2 or 3 things that are coming out of my Instagram are like motivational quotes, Earn Your Sunrise, and like every so often a marketing thing. But to be honest, like in the beginning, it was very like marketing heavy. And then I just got over talking about how many hashtags to include in an Instagram post. And I was like, this is more fun for me. So I think the most important thing is when you're building your brand, don't force it, and create content in a way that's easy for you and enjoyable for you, because that's what's going to be sustainable. It's not, you know, it's not as enjoyable for me to talk about, you know, the ins and outs of like each social media platform, to talk about like, you know, conversion rate optimization on ads and copywriting tips. It's just not as enjoyable. Like I just do it real quick and I'm consistent about what I do. And then eventually somebody's going to find out about the agency. So there's that. And then the other thing I would say is like, you understand every single platform. I'm not saying that every single person needs to be on TikTok or even needs to be on Reels, but you need to understand that platform for sure, put out a little bit of content on that and see if that works for you. But whichever one's the lowest barrier to entry and whichever one's the easiest way for you to create content, go ahead and do that. And I think that's the best way to do it. And then just speak from your heart and speak in the language that you would actually speak in real time. Like, I'm not out here putting like F-bombs all over my Instagram. If you talk to me in real life, I probably would drop a little more F-bombs. But like, I'll use poor grammar on purpose because that's just how I talk. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to sit here and try to, you know, talk in the startup language. I'm sure like, you know what I'm talking about working with a lot of these brands. It's like, I'm not here to talk like that. Like I talk like I talk. I believe what I believe. And even if it's cheesy, I'm going to put it out. I'll be honest. I don't like my brother-in-law. We're like good friends, but I haven't added him to Instagram because I know like he doesn't like my stuff. And
Will he just razz you? Will he just razz you on this stuff?
Probably razz me. He'll give me a hard time, and it's all love for sure. But I was like, I won't do that. But I don't know if that answers your question. But like my most favorite thing's doing podcasts. So it's like I just do that.
Yeah, man. I just love of like you deciding like what's the lowest barrier of entry for you. Like if it just seems harmless to go on TikTok and be yourself, then just stay there because you can grow, you know, a good following. But like if you feel like you can spread your knowledge on LinkedIn well, that people can really digest and it's easy for you, it's like spend time on LinkedIn. Because like sometimes I get in the mindset of trying to be everywhere and like reposting the same things. But it's like I'm kind of finding my groove with like Twitter, just like, you know, thoughts in my head going off of, you know, of sports and marketing and copywriting, and LinkedIn is more like actionable advice that people can take. And, you know, Instagram is just kind of a little bit of a look. It's kind of like behind the scenes of what I do. So. Yeah,
100. I want to give you like I want to give the listeners or viewers a small tip too. If you've been growing your brand growing your personal brand for a long time, don't be afraid to recycle your content from 6 months to a year ago, if not sooner. Because the thing is, like, you're getting new followers, right? Like theoretically, you're getting new followers. They haven't seen the stuff that you posted 6 months ago. Like right now, I'm literally going back 6 months, taking a quote that I said, maybe revising a little bit and putting it back up. And because it's all feeding top of funnel, right? And then after that, you know, the email newsletter is really where I get like new and fresh all the time that I have. But like, but yeah, don't be afraid to do that, because I think as creators, we're like, I have to do something new. I have to say it in a new way. But we already have art. Like people still watch the same episodes of Friends over and over and over again because they like it. If your content's good enough, take it from 6 months ago and put it up there. That's just me.
No, dude, it's something that I like struggle with too. And it's like, I do all these interviews and do other stuff, and I have all this content that I can repurpose. Like I could take a quote from you, put our headshots on an Instagram post and be like, all right, there's a post for today. But it just like, I get in my own head of like, well, that takes work to do. And it's like, I could outsource it. And like a lot of stuff at times I do, but it's like taking that step of even just giving that direction and setting myself up for it. Need to get much better at that. But that's like, but you bring up a good point. Like I've shared like copywriting tips, like from LinkedIn from like 4 months ago, and slap it on Twitter, you know, same exact thing, and get good traction with it. Like, you don't have to overthink it for sure.
Right. Yeah, I got the iPhone like 11 Plus or whatever by accident. I didn't actually want this phone. Like my other one just like stopped. My other iPhone just stopped working, and my business Nelson, who's actually my co-founder, he's like, camera's really good, right? And I was like, yeah, it's really good for all my screenshots of tweets so that I can post it on Instagram. Like, that's all I'm doing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. We got a couple people commenting. Liz Johnson, Star Child, Facebook name, love that. Always be authentic. And then Brittany chiming in again. Awesome, agree 100%. Recycle and repurpose content. Mikhail, a lot of your motivational quotes are these stuff where like you think of while you're working out, you see in a book, and then you put it in there. You know, what's like a quick inspiration? Just like you write these down in like a note, an Evernote.
No, literally it's all screen, like like if I'm sitting watching TV and something like kind of sparks or whatever, I'll like tweet it, take a screenshot and put it there for later. And I just do it for like the white background. I just, you know, do the tweet, screenshot, then crop it down. And I'll definitely gather inspiration from everybody that, you know, I listen to or whatever, put it in my own words. I think, you know, if we look at people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, like all of these people, they're all saying the same thing. Eric Thomas, it's just like in a little bit different of vibe to cater to a certain audience, right?
Right.
They're all definitely things I believe, but I just want to put it in my own, like, I just want to add my own swag to it type of thing. Yeah. I would like to think that a lot of them there's a lot that the longer form ones are ones that I'm like just like thinking through. Like I have all this stuff, but like that I want to talk about, but I know it doesn't really like. It's just like an observation. I don't think people would get it without context. Anyways, it's stuff that I come up with usually first thing in the morning while I'm making coffee. Like, what am I feeling today? But the number one thing I do, and I think I learned this from you, is I think of like one specific person, because it's so like motivational advice. Like it's cool, but like I think of one specific person or one specific situation, and it's like, what do I want to tell that person today? And it's not, and I don't mean that in a subtweet type of fashion. I'm not like talking shit or anything like that. It's more of just like
what do they need to hear? What could help them?
What do you need to hear? Exactly. You know what I mean? So that's exactly what that is.
Speaking of, last couple questions here, Mikhail. What is your morning routine like? How do you start, and then what gets you motivated and ready to take on the day?
Sure. Morning routine, I wake up around, between 4:30 and 5. First thing I do is I'll do like a little bit of this, like on the side of my bed, just to like loosen up my, like I'm really going to go granular with this and like loosen up my back. And then I go to my coffee machine, make a cup of coffee. While that's brewing, I pour myself a glass of water with some like greens in it, drink that. And then I'll write in my 5-minute gratitude journal. I'm like pointing at it because it's literally like over there, proof that this actually happens in the morning. Nice. Yeah. And then after that, I'll read a little bit, and I read the Morning Brew, Stacked Marketer. And then, to be honest, I read the Bible as well. And so those are like the 3 things I'll read in the morning. Then I'll get to the gym. I'm in the gym by like 5:30 or 6 at the latest. Get a really tough workout in. And this is where a lot of the like meditation part is coming in. I do sit down and like do the quiet meditation, but I'll do a repetitive motion, whether it's jumping rope or running. And I'll start like really taking time to one, have like spend more time in gratitude, but 2, also visualize how I want the day to go. So I'll look at my calendar first thing in the morning, and I'll be like, and I'll think of like the meetings that I have to have, like this, for example, and I'll imagine myself showing up for that meeting. In like a great way. And then I'll also do like daily affirmations. And I've been telling myself the same thing for the last 5 days, or 5 years rather. And
what are 1 or 2 of those?
Yeah. So my morning affirmation is, I'm the leader of $1 million company that brings out the best in the people that we work with, each other and our partners. And I bring wealth and knowledge, experience, and finance to myself and everyone around me because I work hard, I'm a fighter, and I am so blessed. Thank you, God, for my success. And I will repeat that to myself over and over and over and over again. And I've been repeating that to myself since we were doing like $1,000 a month in recurring revenue, just to like build that into my brand or into my brain. So, so that's what I do. It's where I'll set my intention. And then when I get home, I try to love on my wife as much as possible and like give her some attention. If I have time for like a quiet meditation, I'll do that, and then I'll get into the office. But that's every single morning except for Sundays.
Yeah, dude, I think the visualization and affirmations is so big, and I find it to be a common theme with people I'm talking to more. Like last week, I talked to this gentleman named Gary Ware, super high energy guy, And he talked about how he does visualizations. Like he does look at his calendar, but he like asks questions of just like, what do I want to experience today? It's like, what will bring me joy today if I do it? But I think that's powerful. And I've been starting to do that in my routine as well. Cause I got my journal and I do my gratitude in my affirmations as well. But like, yeah, looking at the calendar and being like, how would I want this interview with Mikhail to go today? Like how, what would I visualize like it being really awesome? What would that be like? Like things like that, I think would be super powerful.
100%, because honestly, like I feel as if a lot of people go into their day reactive, and I don't wake up at like 4:30 in the morning because it's cool. To be honest, I wish I could sleep in a little bit later. Like, and not I wish, because I could if I wanted, but like my day, like my phone starts blowing up at 7:30 in the morning. I do not like working out at night, and I'd rather like watch 2 episodes of Family Guy at night. And then so I wake up a little earlier so that I can get all that stuff done. And you just kind of make time for it. But when you can go in intentional and like kind of control your day, like everything ends up better. You know what I mean? You're like putting on your armor to go into the battle of the day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man, I dig it.
Do that.
Yeah. All right, man. Last question here, 2-part question. Always love getting these answers. But the first part, are you more burrito or pizza guy?
Pizza.
Pizza. Okay. All right. So it's interesting. California, I feel like a lot of people are digging burritos, especially, you know, the San Diego Baja burrito type of thing. I've had one guy last week, but
I went with my gut there because that was a really hard question actually. But the first thing that came to mind was pizza. I love a good burrito. I like my wife is Mexican. She makes great Mexican food. Yeah. And there's so many great burrito places around here, but pizza, dude, I'm telling you, like, I know that you're from Chicago, but I'm a New York style pizza kind of guy. And there's a couple of spots around here that are really good. And I love a good pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, likewise, dude. I could eat it probably 3 times a week. I had pizza last night at one of our favorite spots in the city. It's such a good variety. It's just like, but one thing, if you're listening to this, like Chicago, people who live and grow up in Chicago, they're not crazy about deep dish. Like that's a tourist thing. It's like we have deep dish maybe once or twice a year because people come into town and want it, and we go with them. Like we have other pizza joints that we like, so we're not always just chowing down on deep dish pizza. So just I don't know. I feel like I get so defensive there, but it's just so funny to me. But yes. So here we go. I want to know then, since you're a pizza guy, if you had to build a success pizza, what are the 3 key ingredients on there?
Pepperoni. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. The very first interview I did, I asked him that question. He's like, okay, I gotta have pepperoni and I gotta have sausage. I was like, oh shit. I was like, no, characteristics.
Honestly, the success pizza. So the 3 things for success is honestly like in a tremendous amount of empathy for the other person. For whoever you're working with, because on the client side, you have to understand where they're coming from. We talked about this earlier. When you're communicating with them, you have to be able to understand what they want. And in marketing specifically, you have to understand what the consumer wants. But in addition to that, you have to have empathy for the people that you're working with as well, too. Like, I need to know what Nelson and Carly and my team is going through on a day-to-day basis so that I can serve them best. Yeah. And when you go into any situation with a servant's heart, you're always going to be a lot more successful, in my opinion. The second part to success is a lot of humility. I think that you're never too good. And I'm taking this line from my friend Lauren Nicole Johnson. You're never too good to get better. So, I feel like I got chops. I'm sure Terry, I think you even mentioned recently, you still read books on like copywriting, things like this. You always have to be learning, and you always have to practice hard, and you always have to be learning and wanting to track that. And the third one, I guess, the third one, man, this sounds so Gary Vee, but it honestly is patience. Yeah. Like, dude, I've been doing this, and it's not like it's been forever. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I thought that 2 years in, I would do $1 million in yearly revenue, and I still haven't hit it to this day. But every single year, we get closer and closer and closer. And if my projections are correct, next year will actually be the year, which would be fantastic. Yeah. But honestly, like, you got to be patient, not just in your progress, but also with what you take from your progress as well, too. I don't pay myself $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? And so, but I give that to my team and I take care of them first. I'm patient. I know mine's coming. You know what I mean? And if it never does, I'm happy. But patience is such a big thing, and just like continue to be diligent. I mean, there's like two more, like obviously the hard work is part of it, but I think those are the three that people really struggle with: is the empathy, is the patience, and the humility is the big one.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, hard work kind of just goes without saying. At least I like to think so. It's like, but like having those other things, like you are going to have to be patient, because, you know, you're right. It's like you see all these people, these successful entrepreneurs. It's like they worked a ton to get there, to get their message out, to make it seem simpler for you to do what they're doing. But it's like, it took them years. It's like I've been being a full-time, you know, copywriter on my own, running my own business for just over 2 years. And I'm like hitting these milestones that I was like hoping I could get in a couple months doing things when I started out. Just takes time, man, and consistency for sure.
Yeah. And you've seen a lot of growth too recently, which is really cool. So I'm pumped on that.
Cool. Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Liz here. And again, you might be the first Proceed with Passion Q&A interviewee from Cali that prefers pizza over burrito.
Man, I think it's because, I don't know. It's
dude, I dig it though, man. Are you from Cali?
Yeah, like, I was born and raised here.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Man, I really want a pizza and burrito right now.
Dude, I got leftover pizza for lunch, so I'm excited for that today.
It's amazing.
Yeah, man. But dude, Success Pizza, it sounds great, man. I appreciate you sharing that value with us and sharing everything today, Mikhail. It was really cool to get a little bit deeper into your story, some things I did not know about at all. It just makes it even more inspiring of everything that you're accomplishing right now. And you know, you touched on it. It's been so cool to get to know you and work with you and your team. Mm-hmm. So like you talk about how awesome your team is. I know that firsthand. I appreciate the opportunities that you've been giving me, man. And yeah, obviously it's like,
likewise, dude.
Yeah, man. The more you give back, the more people are gonna, you know, reciprocate that. So
yeah. Likewise. And honestly, I'm excited for the pandemic to be over. Like, I'll come to Chicago, you come out here, like whatever the case may be, but I'm excited to do this interview again in a year, vice versa, either yours or mine or vice versa, where it's like, dude, remember when. That's like the coolest thing to do. It's like, remember when, and it's like, man, dude, we're doing it. I'm stoked for everybody.
Yeah, man. I'm going to go there. You're going to take me to your favorite pizza spot. I'll take you to mine in Chicago. We'll have some good conversations.
All right. You talked me into it.
All right, Mikhail. Well, before we go, tell everybody where they can find you across the internet and anything that you'd like else to promote here.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I actually have been using Snapchat again, wherever it is, at Mick, M-I-Q-K. I also have a podcast, Oversharing with Mikhail Alfon. There's a great episode with Terry on there as well too. And I also have a newsletter that I send out every week, which kind of goes through my weekly learnings and some picks from the week. You can find that at my website, mikhailalfon.com. It's called the Monday Standard.
Awesome. Well, Mikhail, thank you so much again, man. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. It was another episode of Proceed with Passion Q&A Live. Thank you so much for watching along live, watching the replay. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.